if I'm looking up, I just connected my computer to my monitor thing, so I'm just looking at it through my monitor. So
Oh, yeah, sure, sure.
it's just getting annoying looking at my small screen.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, so I want to talk to you about a couple things. Oh yeah, before we start, I had a couple questions about cars that I started doing. Um, I started doing the exam crackers,
Hmm.
verbal reasoning cars. I've done,
Passages thing.
what's up?
101 passages.
Yeah, they are very different from like Jack Weston, and it kind of sucks because towards the end I was really getting used to Jack Weston, but whatever. Um, it seems very, very like detail oriented, asking very like specific things, but I mean whatever, I think it's good practice, and I think that helps me with like structure questions, so I'm kind of looking at it that way. Um, but have you possibly attempted them before? Have you done them before? Okay. Do you feel like the passages are longer, or
I'm
is
gonna
that just
take another look at them right now.
okay? Because like it's typically taking me a lot longer,
Hmm.
but I don't know. Sometimes I get stuck on some of the questions too because they're a lot of structure questions, not really main ideas. But
You're doing it's like 1,001 questions, that one, or which one are you doing? Which
it's
exam
let
cracker?
me see.
Is it
Let me-
just EK verbal reasoning?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me see. I'm gonna show my screen on I'm gonna go to the first page.
Yeah.
This one.
Oh yeah, 101 passages. I'm trying to see where I have that in the
I think yeah, I know you have it, but yeah, I don't know what link you have it in.
um
Or I can scroll on my side if you want to, if that works.
I got I think I got it.
Okay.
Let me take another look. I'm looking through it now. Any particular passage?
Just in overall, if you feel like they were longer, because I don't know, take me a lot longer. But I mean, if you can, that's fine. It's a very broad question I'm asking, but
Yeah, I mean, from what I see now, um, it seems, I mean, it seems kind of like fine, in terms of it's still asking questions about the arguments. It's,
okay. Um,
mhm.
so I'm just debating if maybe we should just work on a passage of these because they're so hard.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
I'm just thinking. Okay. Well, I'm seeing you on. I think I see you on Wednesday, not Wednesday, Thursday. So I was gonna go over section bank stuff, but honestly, maybe it's better that we just go through one of these passages.
Okay.
All right. If we have time, maybe I'll ask you some section bank. But all right, I guess we can do something that I haven't done yet. We'll go over a long one. Yeah, we can. I guess we can do this one.
Okay.
Also, do you mind if I also like put record on my computer too and just record this on my computer as well? Is that cool with you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go for it.
Okay.
Well, you could just record it through Zoom.
Oh, I can?
Yep.
The thing is, I don't my Zoom, I don't think my Zoom works, but this is fine. I mean, I'll just, it'll probably use up storage, but I'll probably delete it after I go through some little things here.
Yeah, yeah. The in Zoom you could do the same thing that I'm doing with recording it.
Oh, really? How do you, let me see. Where do you go on Zoom?
Um, on your Zoom toolbar, there should be an icon like where it says like participants and chat and react and stuff.
Participants, chat, and react. Okay.
Yeah. So towards
Click
the
on,
right, there should be a record button, a record icon.
oh no, yeah, I don't. I have remote control, pause, share, summary, apps,
Uh-huh. And keep going. Is there a thing that,
request permission to record.
yeah, yeah.
Request.
Hmm.
I sent you a request. I don't know if that will work.
Yeah, I approved it.
Oh, oh, awesome. Thank you.
It it's it says recording.
Sweet. Okay, cool.
It says recording.
Yeah, it says pause recording if I want to or stop recording. So I guess I have to pause it once we're done. Maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, when the meeting's done, it'll automatically
Just
uh convert it into a video file.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
I had another question too, but I forgot. Oh well, we'll start then.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so in examining, oh whoa, that was weird. In examining the causes of the Chinese Qing collapse of the Chinese Qing dynasty, I guess, it is crucial for historiography to avoid the generalization that the blame rests solely with the West's activity in China, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you could not highlight so I could highlight.
Oh, sure. My bad.
That's okay. Um,
You want me to start again?
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. In examining the causes of the Chinese Qing dynasty's collapse, it is crucial for historiography to avoid the generalization that the blame rests solely with the West's activities in China. So it seems it's just talking about how the Qing dynasty its collapse shouldn't be completely just based on the West being part of China.
Okay, so we could say that the causes of the Qing dynasty's collapse, it's important for historiography to avoid the generalization that the blame is solely on the West's activities in China, right?
Okay.
Oh, now, did you say that you said that they were longer or that they felt longer?
I would say definitely felt longer. The passages felt longer. Yeah. I
Okay.
could be wrong. Maybe it's just my brain, but I don't know. It could be
Yeah,
wrong.
because it's more narrow. Because like, let's do this. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. There's 80, probably 90 lines. So like nine times eight probably would give you like 720. I guess that could be on the long side, but um
Okay, so maybe it's not as bad as I thought. Okay, that
yeah,
makes sense.
it shouldn't be, but you see how like it's made narrower so we get something on the left and the right. So
Okay.
that could be the reason. So yeah.
All
So
right.
okay. So this is our new idea, right?
Yes, yes, no idea.
Okay. All
It
right.
is it is a tempting line for Chinese and Western historians alike to take, which allows Eurocentrists to fuel the flames of self-importance by asserting that Western influences alone successfully changed the course of an ancient civilization. So here we see that for historians, it's like it feels pretty easy, I guess, to just say that it was because um it's easy to say that it was the Western influence that changed like China. That's what I was trying to say. To feel the flames of self-importance.
Yeah, so it's tempting for both Chinese and Western historians to take, which is that to take what? Or like what's tempting for these historians?
To feel good, right? The self-importance by asserting that, right? That
Oh,
sentence.
so asserting what?
Asserting their self-importance, like they're
Oh,
like,
sorry, I mean when they say it is a tempting line, that
yes,
that's referring to.
the oh, the blame, right? The blame rests solely on the West activities in China.
Yep. So it's tempting for the Chinese and Western historians, which particularly lets the Eurocentrists to feel more, important by saying that Western influence alone successfully changed the course of, an ancient civilization.
Hmm.
So, okay, so we're saying that yes, it's tempting, and it says it's tempting to both Chinese and Western historians, but the latter, the Western historians, we can are given a reason for that, right? Um,
Yeah.
for Eurocentrists to feel self-important. Um, so they'll probably tell us why it's tempting for Chinese after.
Simultaneously, Chinese nationalists can use Western imperialism as the all-explanatory factor, conveniently sidestepping the embarrassing examination of how China as a polity interacted with the West.
All right. So
Okay.
that's what we were expecting. So now they're talking about how it's tempting for the Chinese historians as well. Why?
Because of the because of the Western imperialism, they can use that as a that to explain everything that happened.
Uh-huh. And if they use that, they can avoid, the embarrassment of how China, kind of like how China poorly interacted with the West.
Hmm.
So we could see that. So our new idea was that um when investigating the causes of the Qing dynasty's collapse, that we should avoid to blame it solely on the West, and that it's tempting for the Western historians to say that that's the reason because it can makes them feel important. And it's tempting also for the Chinese historians because they can like uh sidestep the embarrassing fact that, their civilization got messed up by, the Western imperialists. So we're given reasons for that view
Okay.
that the author thinks is a view that we should not take. Right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
A better balanced analysis should begin by looking at the Qing era Chinese as a national polity, a group with some unity of purpose and a system of shared culture which held them together on a national level.
Okay.
Okay. So, see author's opinion here, I guess, on what he thinks might be a better idea on what we should do, um, to consider as a group that was uniting for some level of purpose.
Hmm. All right, now let me think where I can write. Okay, the
Do you want
map.
to zoom out a little bit, or?
Uh, I should have said this before because if we do anything like that, it'll mess with the highlights.
Oh, okay.
It's okay, it's okay. So what, let's see what I can do here. So I'm gonna just put, oops, like on this left side, the map. So what can we say for P1?
I guess we can say that the West and the West historians and Chinese historians have different explanations for the Qing dynasty collapse. However, author feels a better analysis would be to view the Qing Chinese as a national polity or a group.
I wrote, I know it's a lot. Qing collapse, not solely Western influence, tempting for Western historians because self-importance. Chinese historians, meaning tempting also for Chinese historians to blame West, so as not to feel embarrassed. Better balanced view is to view Qing era as a national polity with unity of purpose and shared culture.
Okay.
Mhm.
So do you want me to scroll down or probably not, right?
Uh, we'll probably have to just because like the next paragraph goes down into stuff that we can't see. But yeah, or maybe you could take a screenshot like a paragraph at a time.
Okay, I mean, I can take a screenshot of this paragraph and then I'll zoom out for the rest.
Okay. Mhm. Okay.
Historian Jacques Garnett characterizes the dynastic China of the 1820s onward as being in social deterioration due to problems it inherited from the prior Qianlong emperor's lavish spending and widespread corruption.
Mhm.
Interesting. So it seems here some historians says that problems that the problems that the Chinese dynasty had to deal with was due to a lot of spending and corruption, it seems. It terms it as social deterioration. A list of China's.
Oh wait, so yeah, let's see this. Okay, so all right, what are we saying here? And is
I
this
think we're saying
a
that
new idea? Sorry?
what did you say?
Oh yeah, what are we saying here? And is this a new idea or same idea?
I think this would be a new idea.
All right, what are we
Um,
saying?
I think we're saying that the historian Gurnett
Mhm.
seems to say that any issues, like one of the issues for with the Chinese collapse, the Qing dynasty's collapse, is due to problems because the emperor decided to like pay a lot of money. Not pay a lot of money, but spend a lot of money, and due to a lot of
Wait,
corruption, it seems.
when you say the emperor, what do you mean?
The emperor of the dynasty, the emperor of the Qing dynasty at the time. after the 1820s, it seems.
Are you sure that it's the emperor of the Qing dynasty? Inherited from the prior.
Hmm. Inherited from, okay, I see. Okay. From the prior Qing Long's emperor lavish spending and widespread corruption.
Mhm.
So it's okay. So basically, Qin Long Emperor, he started the whole thing of spending and starting the corruption, which caused more and more problems in
Uh-huh.
um, the future
Yeah.
dynasty.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't know like in the first paragraph like what years, the Qing dynasty was, right?
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
in paragraph two, we're saying, 1820s onward being this, problems it inherited from the prior emperor's lavish spending and widespread corruption. So since they said prior, my guess is that it's prior to the Qing dynasty, perhaps.
Right to the Qing dynasty.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be kind of difficult here because, for at least these first two paragraphs so far, it's like dot 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 and then in brackets and then dot dot dot, which is really just them taking like because
Parts, right?
what's up?
Just parts, right? Parts of the passage, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah, like part to make the passage, like, they likely are using something that's a lot longer, and so they're kind of having like the dot 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 just meaning like that, we're not considering what was in the original thing, which is gonna have the actual things, but we're just skipping around, so we have the dot dot dot. And yeah, it can look very odd. That's probably something that they stopped doing for cars. So looking at it like this and seeing it here can seem a little weird. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, okay. Yeah, we have a new idea here, and this is just a particular historian, and he's um giving us this other reason, and it's an other reason because it's not, specifically blaming the West, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I missed that, but yeah, that's a good point. A
Mhm.
list of China's problems should also enumerate the Kang, the Kangxi Emperor's benevolent but ill-advised decision to freeze official taxes at the 1712 level, well, which when combined with the overspending of later emperors, caused a shortage of national tax revenue that held back industrialization and forced the dependence on foreign capital in order to build the armies necessary to repel foreign military influence. Uh, it's a lot of a lot of words.
Mhm. So, is the Kangxi Emperor before or after the Qianlong Emperor?
I honestly can't tell. Um,
Well,
I mean, I'm guessing by the context, it seems like it's after, because if it says prior, and it's
well,
kind of seems like continue. I don't know.
I mean the compared to the Kangxi. Show me
I
where the
said
Kangxi
I'm
is.
saying that the Kangxi was after Qianlong, at least based on that.
Well, what year do they give for the Kangxi?
1712 level.
Hmm.
Oh, that's a year? Oh, okay, I thought that was something like a tax or something. Okay, never mind then. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm guessing like it's freezing it at the level that it was in 1712.
Okay.
But
Okay. So yeah, based on that, I guess he's at before then.
yeah, but even if you didn't have that, look what it says right after. When combined with the overspending of later emperors.
Okay.
And which emperor did the overspending?
Qianlong.
Yep. And it says later emperors, right?
Hmm.
So this Kangxi emperor's decision to freeze official taxes can be combined with the overspending of later emperors like the Qianlong, right?
right? Yeah, yeah, we can. Yeah,
Okay. So we could say that the Kangxi emperors, like so far I haven't decided if I want to put like Qianlong or Kangxi or Qing dynasty stuff,
hmm
but maybe I should. But okay, so we have okay, Kangxi freeze official taxes at the 1712 level when combined with the overspending of later emperors caused this, so maybe I'll say combined with overspending later emperors, caused a shortage of national tax revenue, held back industrialization, and forced dependence on foreign capital to build the armies necessary to repel foreign military influence. So I guess I'm like highlighting a lot here, which I usually don't like
Okay.
to do. But what are we saying so far? Like we're saying a lot so far. But what are we saying?
Yeah. That I guess I think it goes beyond like compared to the stuff that we learned in the first paragraph,
Hmm.
we're learning that there's issues with like more on the issues of the economic side, I guess you could say,
Okay.
that
So,
prevented like for example, like this official taxes and overspending.
uh-huh.
Um, yeah, apparently caught a shortage and they were able to industrialize and like all of these other factors. But it seems it's more based on like economic. That's what I'm kind of getting.
So what it seems like, if I were to put it all together, seems like um the Kangxi Emperor's decision to freeze taxes combined with the overspending of like the Qianlong Emperor led to this shortage of national tax revenue because they haven't, if they're freezing taxes at the 1712 level, they're not increasing that tax rate that they take from the people, right?
Yeah.
So they have less like money in the treasury, let's say, to begin with. And then when the later emperors like spends a ton of money, they have even less money in a national tax, like even less money in terms of like the government that the government has. And this held back industrialization and caused this dependence on foreign capital, foreign money that is, to build the armies, because it costs money to build armies that you need to repel foreign military influence, right?
hmm
So you can kind of see how you can kind of see how if a historian was to view this only from the Western, like only from the perspective that the Western governments have caused this, you can see that with, they need armies to repel foreign military influence, but this is kind of giving us an insight into how that was really caused by things like within China itself.
Okay.
Hmm.
This policy, which provided fewer tax incentives to keep families small, may have contributed to the population explosion of 18th century.
Mm.
Okay. So essentially, yeah, there's not due to these. Okay, so basically all of these subsequent events
Hmm.
seems that it had this other result of increasing the population.
Yeah, apparently they had a policy that was like, okay, if you have a smaller family, you'll get more tax incentives. Meaning like, we're not going to tax you on certain things. So that's gone, right? So
Yeah.
so so people had less tax incentive to keep families small, so people just had bigger families. Then we have a population explosion in the 18th century. Um, what years are the 18th century?
1700s to
Yep,
the 1800s.
yep. Okay.
Fundamentally, the Qing could be, okay, so we're going back to Qing.
Hmm.
Okay. Should be said to have inherited the continuation of the general problems inherited by all dynasties since the Han. In addition, there was ever-present tension between landlords and tenant farmers, worsened by overcrowding and exasperated by later taxes instituted to bolster stagnant revenue. Interesting.
Hmm.
So it seems like they're kind of adding on that it was again like the Qing basically inherited again all of these previous problems,
Hmm.
all the way going back to the Han. And it seems that
Hmm.
they tried to tax them, but that just made things worse, just created more tension between the landlords and farmers. So just more and more internal problems, it seems.
Hmm. Okay. So paragraph two, yeah, there's a lot going on here. So we could say that, um, let's see. So we could say that according to Gurnett, that, um, let's see. I'll say start with the Kong C, um, pros taxes plus the Qi and Long, overspending slash corruption, um, caused shortage of tax revenue, held back industrialization, forced dependence on foreign capital to build armies to resist foreign military. Um, okay, and then in addition, fewer tax incentives for small family led to population explosion, 18th century, led to um, tension between landlords and tenant farmers, or exacerbated tension between landlords and tenant farmers, or rather, wait. Oh damn it. Oh, double damn it. Okay. Uh, why did it do that? Okay. Hmm.
I guess you can put it there, right? Maybe there or right here, so
So it lets you, because you're sharing your screen, it lets you move the stuff. Do you remember?
okay. I think I do. Let me see.
Select. It's a select tool. If you go to, you'd have to go to annotate first.
Yeah, sometimes okay, there we go. It's so annoying. I don't know why it does that.
Yeah. Then
So
there's a selection tool, and yeah, there we go. Perfect. Yep.
that's good. Or
Okay.
oh,
Here.
do you want to make it? I can make it smaller, I guess,
Okay. Yeah. And
and
then
just extend it down.
yeah.
Okay, that works.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah. Like I put the white thing first, and then I put the writing, and then the white thing disappeared. So, but anyway. Yeah,
okay,
I could say, yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening in these paragraphs,
yeah.
but let's see how the rest of it goes. Okay.
Traditional historiography makes the first Opium War, 1839 to 42. So we're a little over. 20s now, okay. The watermark for imperialist intervention and unequal trade agreements. So it seems like a new idea. Um, okay, so imperialist intervention and unequal trade agreements. But the war began as an economic reaction. The war began as an economic reaction by Great Britain against its trade deficit with the Chinese. So it seems like in just history, this war seems to be based on imperialist intervention, but it seems that it was actually a war that was due to Great Britain. It was a reaction by Great Britain because they weren't able to trade with the Chinese, trade enough with the Chinese. It says deficit. So,
Yeah, so that's saying that traditional historiography says or uses or cites the First Opium War as this watermark for imperialist intervention and unequal trade, but it actually began as an economic reaction by Great Britain against its trade deficit with the Chinese. Okay.
I guess also seems like a new idea.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the decision was made by the British East India Company. It's a decision. Okay, by send Indian opium, then still legal to China. The first shipments of opium were only 28,000 pounds annually before the 1729 ban, though its effects were concentrated in Canton. Okay, seems random, but kind of confused on the part where it says the decision, but I'm guessing that based on that just means going back to the war, why it started. But it seems that it's possibly due to
Mm-hmm.
this is probably just due to this recent to Indian company to send Indian opium
Mm-hmm.
to China, which caused that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting at. I could be wrong, but
Yep.
this quantity of opium had minimal effect on the trade deficit and could have been crushed by the authorities soon after 1729, had it not been for the collaborators within China who abetted British smugglers.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that again, like apparently the war started on a trade deficit, but here we see that the amount of opium that was being sent didn't really have much of an effect on the trade deficit.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that the Chinese were actually helping these British smugglers. Interesting. The first collaborators were on the demand side. Okay, the first collaborators were on the demand side. The recreational users of opium, a surprisingly large number of whom were low-level government officials. Interesting. Okay, so the people that used the opium were low government. Simultaneously, there arose a network of Chinese, at the same time, I guess there arose a network of Chinese paint pirates, smugglers, and corrupt customs inspectors who distributed the drugs. So we see there's a lot of demand with the government officials, and at the same time, we have these pirates and smugglers who started to distribute the drug. Okay. The prohibition that could have wiped out the fledgling opium trade in China, had a national consensus existed, became a telling revelation of the disunity and profiteering in Chinese society, both inside and outside the government. Okay.
What are you saying here?
Seems a little confusing, but what I'm trying, like what I kind of get from this, it seems that the Chinese the Chinese tried to profit more off of this opium from the British, it seems.
Uh-huh. And so the prohibition that could have wiped out the fledgling opium trade in China had a national consensus existed, became a telling revelation of the disunity and profiteering in Chinese society, both inside and outside the government. So there could have been a prohibition that stopped this type of trade, this opium trade, but there wasn't. And the fact that there wasn't is telling because it shows us the level of so they're saying the prohibition if could have happened if we had a national consensus, if everyone on the national level agreed. But since that didn't happen, it shows that there's a lot of disunity and profiteering in the Chinese society, inside and outside the government. So
Okay.
if we look at this paragraph as a whole, it seems like they're saying that, traditionally, the first Opium War is used as an example for imperialist intervention and unequal trade agreements, but it began as an economic reaction by Great Britain against its trade deficit with the Chinese, and that the decision was made by the British East India Company to send Indian opium, which was still legal, to China. And the first shipments were only 28,000 pounds annually before the 1729 ban. And these effects were concentrated in Canton, but ultimately, this quantity of opium had a minimal effect on the trade deficit. Um, And yeah, it could have been stopped by authorities, you know, after 1729, but that didn't happen because there's collaborators within China that helped British smugglers. And the first collaborators were, I highlighted demand side to indicate that there's collaborators that increase the demand for opium. So that could be the recreational users of opium. A large amount were actually like government officials. But there's also, and they didn't say it explicitly, but I take to mean the supply side,
Mhm.
a network of Chinese smugglers, right, and corrupt customs inspectors that distributed the drug, made the supply of the drug go up, and uh, that this could have been ended with if there was a national consensus, but there wasn't because there's a lot of disunity and profiteering in the Chinese society. So we can write, let's see, P3. Let's see. First Opium War, 1839, traditionally viewed as imperialist intervention, unequal trade agreements, but was economic reaction um, against trade deficit. Um, British East India Company, I'm just gonna write BEIC, um, sent opium to China before 1729 ban and had minimal effect on trade deficit, but and could have been stopped, but wasn't because Chinese collaborators, including users, smugglers, etc. And then shows disunity, disunity slash profiteering in Chinese society. First Opium War, 1839, traditionally viewed as imperialist intervention and unequal trade agreements, but was an economic reaction against a trade deficit. British East India Company, BEIC, sent opium to China before the 1729 ban, and this actually had a minimum effect on the trade deficit and could have been stopped, but wasn't because Chinese collaborators, including users, smugglers, etc., um, and that this disunity slash profiteering in Chinese society, both inside and outside government, yeah, led to this situation.
Yeah.
So So yeah, it seems like we're talking about something completely different here, but I think we're like our repeated main idea so far seems to be something like you know, it's that the Chinese had a role in, I guess, ultimately, the Qing dynasty's collapse,
Yep.
due to like mostly economic reasons.
Yep.
Okay.
The transition from economic imperialism to armed intervention dated from 1839 when the British sent an armed force to Canton to legalize opium. Okay. So they seem to send out to try to, okay, armed force to Canton to legalize opium. The British attackers numbered only 2,400 in ships of not much more sophisticated capabilities than those that the Chinese Navy had at its disposal. Okay. So
So
it wasn't as crazy, the Navy that they sent out.
So here we have a new idea in which we're talking about the transition from economic imperialism to armed imperialism, which could be like, the war aspect of it. And that began when the British sent an armed force to legalize opium. Oh, and then you said the British attackers numbered only 2,400 in ships of not much more sophisticated capabilities than that of the Chinese Navy that the Chinese Navy had at its disposal. Okay.
Exactly why the Chinese defenders were defeated is unclear. I don't really know why they were defeated.
Hmm.
It would have been a relatively easy matter for the Qing military at full strength, Qing military, okay, to destroy the British expedition. However, in later encounters, widespread theft and embezzlement among the Chinese military leaders reduced their impressive army to complete ineffectiveness. Interesting. So, okay. So they could have taken it out, but it seems that their engagement with theft and embezzlement practically made their militia ineffective. Like it wasn't good enough to take down the British. Also, vital militia units that could have reinforced the Canton defenders were withheld because government ministers were more wary of the threat from arming they were more wary of the threat from arming their own people than the threat from outside attack.
Hmm.
Few realized the snowball effect the half-hearted defeat at Canton would set in motion. Interesting. Okay. So it seems that, again, as you said, that it shifted from an economic to more of an armed intervention. And it says that the Chinese probably had a good militia to take it down, but again, apparently due to their theft and embezzlement, it practically made it ineffective. And in addition to that, right, it seems that they're more wary of a threat. They were more like they're more wary of trying to treat their own people rather than seeing if they would possibly get attacked from the outside. And it seems like this started a sequence of events starting at, as like they said, the snowball effect, right? That started all the way from Canton, the defeat of Canton, which I'm theorizing it probably sets the tone for how the collapse happens.
Yeah, I wrote transition from economic imperialism to armed when Brit sent armed forces to legalize opium. Should have been beaten by the Qing military, but theft/embezzlement made the military ineffective, and they didn't want to arm their own people by sending in a militia to reinforce the defenders.
Okay. Now legalized in Canton, now legalized in Canton, the trade in British, okay, so now legalized in Canton, the trade in British opium swelled until it completely reversed the trade deficit in Britain's favor. Okay. So through this armed conflict and whatnot, and earlier we learned that in the previous passage that Canton was defeated. So it seems the British started to get control of this trade network. The British took much of their share of the profits back home, causing a drain of silver currency away from China. So they took those profits, and now China has got nothing, well, barely anything, which in turn caused hyperinflation in the copper currency. Okay, so there was a drain of silver currency, but now there's an increase in copper currency, mostly held by peasants and poor urban laborers. Okay, to make up for lost revenue, the Qing government raised taxes, aggravating the burden of the poor on the poor. So it seems like they lost silver because of the switch, because of the fact that they lost Canton. Britain started to get power, right? And then once Britain got power, it seems that the silver currency, there was a certain drain or a deficit, silver currency. But now there's an increase in the copper currency. And what the Qing government did was they tried to like raise taxes to kind of alleviate this, but it just made a lot of the poor mad.
Opium now legalized, reversed trade deficit in Britain's favor. Drained silver caused hyperinflation of copper, which is held by the poor. So that hurt the poor. And then the Qing raised taxes, and that also aggravated the burden on the poor. So, okay, let's see. A lot of stuff happening here. So we can say that the, let's see, we can say Qing collapse due to Chinese, let's say,
Internal
due to
factors,
prior Chinese factors, such as, like, let's see,
the emperors, high spending, and the Opium War.
Qing collapse due to prior Chinese factors like emperor overspending, frozen taxes, and Chinese collaboration during the Opium War, and then the reversal of the trade deficit and the burden on the poor.
Okay.
Mhm. So you could take a screenshot now of the map and the highlighted passage.
Okay. Some of the questions. I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick. I'll be back.
Yep.
So the passage indicates that its author would not agree with which of the following statements. So the West actually had little to do with the Qing dynasty's collapse. Not quite, because I remember from the first paragraph, it kind of said that it's not solely based on Western influence. So I don't really like that. I think he would probably agree with that to some, probably agree to that with some degree. The activities of the West were not the sole reason. Yeah, I think he would agree with that statement too. Many Western historians place too great an emphasis on European histories, activities. Hmm, actually, I feel like C and D definitely make sense because the Chinese said that they blamed the West to kind of prevent embarrassment. And then the Western historians placed too great an emphasis on European activities
Mhm.
because they wanted to feel more important. I actually think the best answers would probably be A. They had something to do with it.
Hmm.
It wasn't little to do with something to do with it.
Yep. So we know that C and D are definitely things that he would agree with. And then B is saying that it's not so that activities of the West were not the only reason, right?
Mhm.
But A is saying a little bit too much by saying it had little to do. I mean, it had something to do with it. It's not the only reason, but it still had something to do with it, right?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
I just didn't know that.
Hmm.
The author is primarily concerned with demonstrating that the cause of the Qing dynasty collapse. The author is primarily concerned with demonstrating that the cause of the Qing dynasty is a lot of sequences. So we can go to our main idea there. Overspending, frozen taxes, Chinese collapse during Opium War, and reversal deficit and burn on the poor. Cause began with the first Opium War. I'm not quite sure because previously, before that, he does talk about all the emperors, and they seemed even more prior to that.
Hmm.
Have been accurately described by both Western and Chinese historians. Not quite sure because I know he does say that there's more of a better balanced view in the first paragraph, and he kind of argues against that. So I don't know about that.
Okay.
Were much more the fault of China than any of the Western his activities of influences. I could see that. I could see that, but let's look at D. Stem from long-lasting problems within China that were aggravated by Western activities. Yeah, I think D is a better answer choice
Yeah, so
because D kind of hits like that balanced view thing that he talked about. C seems to be a little bit more like
So
China's the reason for everything, but yeah.
so tell me about like so each of them like tell me about A.
Yeah, so I don't think A is correct because before that past paragraph, he does talk about the emperors and the previous emperors and their issues,
Okay.
like the 1712 tax and all that stuff.
Yep, yep.
Um, B doesn't make sense because he argues against that
Mm-hmm.
and he says that there should be a better balanced view instead of just
Mm-hmm.
blaming it one side or the other side, right?
Okay.
Um, and I like D better than C
Okay.
because D explains that balanced view a lot better. Um, compared to C, which is just blaming everything on China.
Yeah, what word in C makes it really bad?
More the fault of China.
Hmm?
Yeah, he doesn't, I don't know, he doesn't seem to be very like,
Yeah, he's not saying that it's more the fault of one thing over the other. He's not saying it's more the fault of China than it is the West, and he's not saying it's more the fault of West than China. But if we look at our main idea, we wrote this Qing dynasty collapse is due to these prior Chinese factors, and we have a bunch of them, right?
Mhm.
So, um, and then it's just that the existing Chinese factors just were aggravated or exacerbated. Do you know what's meant by exacerbate?
Yeah, just to make things worse.
Yeah, make something that's bad already like even worse. So aggravated is another way of saying that. So yeah, long-standing problems within China that were just made even worse by Western activities. Good job.
Most of the following discoveries, if genuine, would most likely weaken would most weaken the author's arguments. Okay, so we got to see which of these, let's if we were to assume that these were true,
Hmm.
which of the following would just probably weaken the arguments.
Hmm.
Um, okay. If it said argument, I feel like we could have just gone to the main idea, but it says arguments. Okay, we'll see. The Chinese army at Canton in 1839, for various reasons, had been rendered almost completely ineffective. I don't think that would weaken it. He kind of points out that I forgot what the reasons were. Yeah, by theft and embezzlement made it ineffective. So that kind of would go along with the argument. I don't think it would weaken it.
Okay.
The British had badly miscalculated the strength of their armed forces necessary to a successful engagement in Canton, 1839. I'm not sure about this either because even if they miscalculated badly, it doesn't mean that they didn't win.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, but I'll take a note of it. The Chinese naval commanders considered the number of British ships at Canton in 1839 to be inconsequential. Uh, I'm not sure. I don't think the author ever argued against something being consequential or not. If we can go to D. Many modern Chinese historians are at a loss to explain why the British were not simply destroyed at Canton in 1839. Okay, it's weird. So I think A and D are out. I think both of those go along with the passage argument because I remember there was a sentence that said this for D that they don't really know why exactly how they lost.
What paragraph could this stuff be in?
Four.
What are we right in paragraph 4?
Transition from economic imperialism to armed when Brits sent armed forces to legalize opium. Should have been beaten by Qing military, but theft and embezzlement made militia ineffective. And also didn't want to arm their own people, so we just yeah, so that's probably one reason they probably lost Canton.
So you see where we wrote should have been beaten by the
Yeah.
Qing military? Hmm.
Hmm.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Should have been beaten by Qing military. Hmm. I don't know. This question is weird.
We can go back to that paragraph.
Okay. So exactly why the Chinese defenders were defeated is unclear.
Prior to that, the
The
British.
British attackers numbered only 2,400 in ships, not of much more sophisticated capabilities, all than those that the Chinese Navy had at its disposal. So it seems like whatever the British sent out weren't really like,
Uh-huh.
they weren't crazy. They weren't over the top. They were at probably the same level of
Uh-huh.
militia compared to the Chinese. Okay.
Yeah, and then we wrote, or they
Oh,
wrote,
sorry.
exactly why the Chinese defenders were defeated is unclear. It would have been a relatively easy matter for the Qing military at full strength to destroy the British expedition.
Okay. Let's go back to this then. Maybe, maybe B, actually. Never mind. Yeah, I think B would make sense because it says had badly miscalculated the strength of their armed forces. Um, because that would probably indicate that they might lose. I mean, I think that's the best. Yeah, I feel like that's the best I got. Could be wrong, but
So if they had badly miscalculated the strength of their armed forces necessary for a successful engagement at Canton, like did they so okay, let's say that that's true. Um, wouldn't that lead to them like perhaps losing or something?
yeah,
Okay. But they didn't lose, right?
yeah, they still won.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't hit that point. Okay.
So
I guess at this point, I'm just left with. I'm having a hard time reasoning if why A and D would be right. I guess at this point, I'm just left with C, but I still don't see how C could be right. If that is the case.
you said you're left with A and what?
I feel like I'm left with C, no? I mean, I feel like A and D kind of go along with the author's arguments.
Well, the author was saying that the Brits should have lost to the Qing military.
Oh, okay. So because this part says Chinese historians.
Oh, yeah, modern. And so D is just saying many modern Chinese historians are at a loss to explain why the British were not destroyed. And that would go along with the author's arguments because the author's entire argument is like, modern Chinese historians, modern Western historians are not very good at being able to determine why any of this stuff happened. But if it was the case that the Chinese army at Canton in 1839 was rendered completely ineffective, it would weaken the author's argument that the Chinese should have beaten the British.
Oh, I see. But I mean, doesn't he?
Mhm.
I mean, I can't depend it almost. But I mean, I feel like doesn't that go against doesn't that follow with the argument? Because he does say that it's because of the theft and embezzlement, right? That made them ineffective, right?
Yeah, let's go back to that.
Okay.
So it would have been relatively easy matter for the Qing military at full strength to destroy the British expedition. However, in later encounters, right, widespread theft and embezzlement. among Chinese military leaders reduced their impressive army to complete ineffectiveness, and then they talked about the militia units and stuff. So
Okay.
this is tricky, but it does say in later encounters
Okay. Later encounters. But then this answer choice is saying like,
in 1939. Yep, at Camp
okay, so I see the distinction. I see the
there.
little bit of distinction. Okay.
Yeah, so the way that I would have, I guess, analyzed this would be like, okay, like at first I would look at A, of course, then I would look um in our map, and then we said should have been beaten by the Qing military, but theft embezzlement made military ineffective. And then I see the ineffective part, and then I would think, okay, you know what? This is in line with the argument, and then I'd move on to B, and then B says the British had badly miscalculated the strength of their armed forces necessary for a successful engagement in at Canton. Now, I'm guessing that when they say badly miscalculated, like, well, so it could have been a miscalculation in that they only sent like what? Like I think it was like 2,500 trips or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
and that um and if they had lost, I would take that to mean that they badly miscalculated.
Hmm.
But um or rather, so okay, so like they sent in an amount that's smaller than I guess what could have been the case. Like so the amount that they sent in, the author's saying like should have been destroyed, like defeated by the
Yeah.
Chinese. Uh
Hmm.
so it could be the case that this is true then, that they badly miscalculated the strength needed to successfully beat, Canton in 1839. Um, because they probably in reality needed more, and so they miscalculated that, but they still won. So I think that could go with the argument. And then C, the Chinese naval commanders considered the number of British ships to be inconsequential. That would go with it too, because the author does say that the amount of British ships that they sent was inconsequential.
Yeah.
And then D, many Chinese historians are at a loss to explain why they weren't simply destroyed. That's also going along with the passage, because with the passage argument, because the passage argument again is saying, that they should have been beaten. So I think that this is tricky because A, like, yeah, initially I would have eliminated that because we did say embezzlement and theft made the military ineffective. Um, but they said in that paragraph that that the ineffective is for later encounters.
Okay.
So I think that's why this is tricky.
Yeah, such a small little small little detail.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I was gonna put passage information indicates that which of the following statements must be true. Okay. In 1839, the Chinese were defeated in Canton because of widespread theft and embezzlement. Okay, maybe. And there were also other reasons too,
Well,
but
remember what we saw in that paragraph? The theft and embezzlement.
yeah, it was one of the reasons that made the militia ineffective.
Oh no, The militia was made ineffective because the Chinese didn't want to arm their own people, but the military was made ineffective due to the theft and embezzlement. But that was in later encounters, remember?
It was later. Okay, I see what you're saying. It's not
Yeah.
just in 1839. Okay.
Yeah, let's go up back to that.
Yeah, that later encounters just thrown me off.
Yeah, so here we go. So the British attackers numbered only 2,400, so that word only implies it's not a very high amount, right?
Yeah.
In ships of not much more sophisticated capabilities than those that the Chinese Navy had at its disposal. So not only is it a small number, it's not like each of the British ships were more sophisticated than the Chinese ships, right?
Hmm.
So and then we say okay, so it's not like this is something that it's not like there's a lot of British ships, and it's not like the British ships are more, technologically advanced. And then we say exactly why the Chinese defenders were defeated is unclear, right?
Hmm.
And then it says it would have been a relatively easy matter for the Qing military at full strength to destroy the British expedition.
Hmm.
And then it says, however, in later encounters, widespread theft and embezzlement among the Chinese military leaders reduced their impressive army to complete ineffectiveness. Okay.
Hmm.
And you see how it says, okay, in 1839, when the Brits sent an armed force to Canton,
Okay.
it wasn't that many ships, and the ships were not very, they were not more sophisticated than the Chinese. And so we don't know why the Chinese defenders were defeated. And the author is saying that it would have been easy for the Chinese to have beaten the British, right?
Yeah.
And but they didn't. And then they say, however, in later encounters, we have the theft and embezzlement.
Okay. I see the distinction.
Yeah.
Okay. So afterwards,
Mhm. So here,
A probably would not be A probably
uh-huh.
not be true then at that point. We're
Yep,
defeating Benson.
because it was after. The
Okay.
widespread theft and embezzlement was after the 1839 encounter.
Opium was legal in China, 39. I don't think it was, right? I think it was in 1729 ban. There was a 1729 ban. So I'm not sure if that's true.
Correct?
Silver were more popular with the British because it was actually worth more than copper. I mean, that could be true because in the last paragraph we know that the Britain favored and that it drained the silver there. The Chinese drained the silver in China. So maybe those Chinese who were not peasants or poor urban laborers dealt predominant silver. We know that's not true because apparently they were mostly held to the hyperinflation of copper, which was held by the poor. So I think C is our answer.
Wait, read D again.
Well, wait. Those Chinese who were not peasants or poor urban laborers dealt predominantly in silver.
Hmm.
Oh, wait. Oh, damn. Okay. Yeah, copper was mostly with only associated with the poor, and there
Hmm.
was a drainage of the silver. Okay, so I could see how D could be right,
Hmm.
but silver was more popular with the British because it was actually worth more than copper. It was drainage of silver. It was actually more worth more than copper. Yeah, I mean, the more I think about it, there was no indication of that. It was worth more than copper.
Yeah, we're being asked what must be true.
Okay. Because you
And
see, I'm having to like stretch my mind, stretch up a little bit to try to figure out what I can find.
yeah, right. Nothing in the passage indicates why silver was more popular in the British with the British. We don't know why it's more popular with the British, and we certainly don't know, if it was more popular with the British because it's worth more than the copper.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of uncertainty there. But we know from the passage that the copper was held by the poor, so we can reasonably infer that the Chinese who were not poor didn't hold predominantly copper. And if
Yeah.
the only other thing that they have mentioned was silver, then it must be true that they likely held silver if they were not poor.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Hmm.
According to one historical authority on the 1729 ban of opium in China, because no national Chinese consensus existed on the ban, even a concerted effort by customs inspectors and the government was unable to stem the tide of opium into Canton.
Okay.
This authority would probably support the author's assertions fully.
So let's think first about what this says. Um, and what is it, um, what part of the passage it's related to?
Okay. Consensus existed on the ban. I think that was in, pretty sure that was in paragraph 3.
Hmm.
So the British East India Company sent opium to China before 1729 ban, had a minimum effect on trade deficit and could have been stopped, but wasn't because Chinese collaborators, users, smugglers, etc. There was disunity and profiteering in the Chinese society. So it could have been prohibited, but
Hmm.
could have been stopped, but wasn't because they wanted it. Okay. Because no national Chinese consensus existed on the ban, even a concerted effort by custom inspectors and the government was unable to stem the tide of opium into Canton. It seems it kind of goes along with what I just, what you put on the map.
Uh,
Could have
so
been stopped, but wasn't.
yeah. So with the Chinese collaborators, like I didn't put it in the map, but that also included the corrupt customs inspectors. We can go
Mm,
back to paragraph three.
yeah.
So paragraph three, we said that down here,
I think
um,
it's here.
yeah. So
Mhm.
it could have
Oh,
so the it could have been crushed by the authorities after 1729 if it wasn't for the collaborators within China who abetted British smugglers. The first collaborators were on the demand side, recreational users of opium. A lot of surprisingly large number were low-level government officials. And also there were Chinese pirates and smugglers and corrupt customs inspectors who distributed the drug. The prohibition that could have wiped out the fledgling opium trade in China had a national consensus existed, meaning if everyone in the nation agreed on it, shows that there's disunity and profiteering in the Chinese society, both inside and outside of government. So this is saying that they could have stopped this, but it was because there was a lot of disunity and profiteering in the Chinese society, like in the government and stuff. So that's why it wasn't able to happen. So now, if you go back to the question, this is saying that since no national consensus existed for the ban, right?
Mm,
Even a concerted effort by customs inspectors and the government, like if they did actually work together to try to stop this opium trade, that
mm,
even if they work together, that they can't, that they would not have been able to do this, like stop opium coming in.
mm. So it actually kind of goes against it then because
Yep.
yeah, the passage does say that they could have stopped it, but then they're saying that even if they tried, they couldn't have stopped it.
Hmm.
So this authority would probably support the author's assertions fully. Probably not.
Hmm.
Approve the author's description of the government efforts, but disagree with the idea of a consensus. Um, don't think he would approve the author's description because he said that
Hmm.
it could have been stopped. Not consider the author's portrayal of customs inspectors and government officials to be accurate. Maybe. Consider the author's narrative regarding this ban to be completely incorrect. I think C is a better answer choice. D seems a little too extreme to be completely incorrect. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, the narrative is the entire whole kind of thing that the author's saying. Um, and the author's entire narrative was saying that there wasn't that consensus, national consensus, and the this historical authority here seems to agree with that by saying there was no national consensus, right?
Yeah,
So I don't know if the entire narrative would be considered incorrect, but certainly the thing about the customs inspectors, right? Because
yeah, that
the
would be accurate.
author, yeah, the author was saying that the customs inspectors, you couldn't rely on them because they're corrupt. And this historical authority is saying that, if you had the customs inspectors doing their job, that it still wouldn't have worked. So yeah, so I would say that that this person would disagree with the author's portrayal of customs inspectors and the government to be accurate.
Okay.
Hmm.
According to the passage, all of the following may be considered a result of the Qing Emperor's decision to freeze taxes, except, okay, so this was back in paragraph 2.
Hmm.
So essentially, shortage of tax revenue held back industrialization, forced dependence on foreign capital to build armies to resist foreign military. Okay. As a result of it, so yeah, sorry, dependence. I think one dependence on foreign capital that does go align with it, so I don't think that'd be an answer choice. A Chinese population explosion. That was, yeah, there were fewer tax incentives, so that definitely goes along with that. So yeah, I think we're just left with the first Opium War. That seems to be completely something that
Hmm.
was more like trade disagreements and stuff. So it would
Yep.
just be two.
Good.
According to the passage, which of the following is most likely to be true about the relationship between the government and the Chinese people during the period of the First Opium War? Government and the Chinese people. The relationship with the government and the Chinese people. From what I remember, I think there was a part where they were very, because they didn't want to arm their own people.
Hmm.
So maybe something along those lines,
Hmm.
possibly. After the 1839 initial British invasion of Canton, the government ministers armed the Chinese people to repel. Probably not. I don't know about that. Probably not. Both the government ministers and the Chinese people dealt primarily in copper currency. I don't know about that because we see later on there was a hyperinflation of copper, so maybe not. Government ministers were less worried about the British than they were about an internal revolt. Yeah, that sounds very much in line. The Chinese people unsuccessfully revolted against higher government taxes. We know they were aggravated, but we don't know if they went against them. So I think C would be a good answer choice. Okay.
Yep. So it seems like,
Yeah.
they do have a lot more like specific things that they wrote. Um, and but when it came to the questions, it's pretty much the same types of questions that we normally see for cars, but
Yeah.
it does seem to be a lot more specific. So I think that these passages probably would involve more going back to the passage, which I normally, don't want you to do. But for these passages, it seems like, we either have to write a map with a lot of really, really specific stuff in it, or we can go back and view that specific stuff. So I think that for these passages that you can still do them, of course, but you might have to go back to the passage a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
So what do you
mhm.
think? Do you think I should continue doing this or should I try to find some other?
So because you've done all the Jack Weston ones, you've done all the AMC ones, right?
Yeah. And I want to give myself enough time that
Uh-huh.
I don't get the AMC stuff until like February.
hmm Um, so yeah, I think you can try these. Another good book is the Princeton Review Hyperlearning. I have that in the shared drive as well.
Okay.
Um,
So, but like what do you think? Should I continue doing this or no?
yeah, yeah. I think you should continue doing this, and if you want, you can also consider that Princeton Review Hyperlearning verbal book.
Okay.
And you could take a look at that and then see, which one you like more, either this one or that one, but both of them are good. Um, and yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. But I want to still like continue working with that idea that you did, like not going back to the passage as much.
hmm
But yeah, like I want to put myself in a position where I'm like challenging myself with the passages,
hmm
but not to the point where I'm like
hmm
doing kind of the opposite of what you're actually like advocating for, which is not to really go back as much.
Yeah,
Because I do see myself having to like go back a lot. My timing gets off, so I'm like, I don't
yeah,
know
yeah,
if it's
yeah.
worth my time. So I don't know.
Yeah, I guess the only reason I'm saying that is just because um for that uh for like question 56 and 57 in that paragraph, it said after, like, you know what I mean? Like in
Yeah,
in encounters after this 1839 thing, that it's completely ineffective. And that's just because in the map I didn't put that. Because that means that if we just went from the map, like I wrote, could have been stopped. Oh, sorry. It was should have been paragraph 4 should have been beaten by the Qing military, but theft embezzlement made the military ineffective. So what I put in the map would have led us to a wrong answer for 56. Um, because it's 56A looks exactly like what I put. Um,
yeah,
but that's why when we went back to that paragraph, we saw more specifically that it was after this encounter. So yeah, so I would say like okay, don't go back to the passage, but if it's like a structure question like or I guess it's not even really like a structure question, but well kind of like, because they are saying as you said like arguments, not like the overall argument. So each of these could be different arguments in different paragraphs. So,
yeah.
well, it seems like it's all talking about one paragraph, the Chinese army at Canton in 1839. But yeah, the only reason I said to go back was just because in that one paragraph it said in encounters after, and in the map I didn't say that. I just said I didn't say like, encounters after that war.
Okay.
But for the most part, the passages seem to be have a lot more information in them. But the questions are still exactly what we're used to seeing. So yeah, I would just say, yeah, to use the regular strategy, but sometimes, if you need to go back, like I would say it's okay. I would say not to make that the normal course of action, but sometimes it would be okay in a situation
Okay.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to, I guess I've been under the mistake is like I've been trying to simplify my maps a lot
Mhm.
more. So I haven't been going as in depth. But
Mm.
yeah, they've been screwing me over, so maybe I'll try to be still a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, yeah, because like yeah, look, for the map that I put in for this paragraph, like there was just a lot of events that they mentioned that
Yeah.
that are very relevant in terms of what came before what. So yeah, I would say either because you're gonna have to write either a map that has a lot of information like what I wrote here. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, I would say just yeah, use like the same strategy that we've been using. Um, and if you need to go back um to do so, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we can call it a day then. I think that's good. How much will it be today?
Let's see. 125.
Okay.
Because we did I mean correct me if I'm wrong, 1 hour around 48
Yeah.
minutes.
Awesome. I just sent it to him. We have a couple of the section bank questions. We can go over on Thursday. But is it more ideal that I send it to you before or something, or does it before that or no? That's what I'm asking. Let's really show you the questions here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can do that if you want, but not not absolutely necessary.
Awesome. See you then.
All right, take care.